you could change the world while being at school, would it make school a little bit better?
No.
Yeah.
Huh? Would it make it better? Feel like it's useful and not just some dumb information that's useless? Well, here's an opportunity today for you to help change the world. Right? How many here? You heard Calhoun?
Yeah.
Well, how would you know about Calhoun?
He's a dude. Back then.
Huh? Yeah, but dude back then. Deep knowledge in here. I love it. I love it. All right, I'm going to read this quote and break it down for me, all right? For if racial healing is ever to come to our society, it will mean remembering and retelling our story and racial injustice and honoring the voices and actions of those who stood against it. James Cone. Come on, break it down to me. You read it again. What do you think? You laughing. You love this quote, don't you? You love this quote? Anybody? Break it down. Racial healing. We need racial healing in this community. Is racism still a thing?
Yes.
Yes or no? Yeah, well, go ahead.
Well, I think the quote kind of means like, instead of like ignoring the history, it's more of like accepting it, but like not like accepting the people who stood against it rather than the people who weren't.
Not ignoring it. There's something I call white amnesia, where a lot of white folks just think, oh, if we don't talk about racism, it'll just go away. How many people know white race is still in this town? You don't have to raise your hand. But it's real. It's real. And so what I'm going to share today is part of a racist legacy that's in Fort Wayne that we need to change. And I want you guys to help change it. To help you guys make a difference. All right? Because here's the thing, right? You guys have a voice that matters. And if you guys will use that voice, we can make a change in our society. The 200 years from now, your ancestors, you'll be an ancestor. Your kids' will look back and say, man, my dad, my mom helped change our society. All right, everybody with me?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Culture. What is culture? Culture, what is it? Family traditions, right? There's all kinds of cultures. There's white cultures, black cultures. I came from Philadelphia, right? Now, Philadelphia Eagles. Anybody know the Philadelphia Eagles? Yeah? What do you know about Philadelphia Eagle fan culture? What do you know about the Eagle? They're crazy. Yes, we are crazy.
Weird.
Yes, we are weird. That's right. Now, what about Indianapolis Colts fans?
Hey, no, hold on.
They're old.
They're what? I like this. They're not quite as crazy, right? They don't have as good of food for sure, right? So culture. Culture is the way we do things, the way we dress, the way we act, the way everything. It's like water to a fish. Fish doesn't know that water exists until when?
It comes up.
Rises up.
Yeah.
And it's flopping around on the boat going, crap, I can't breathe. I just got caught. Sucks. Right? That culture becomes invisible. It becomes the way things are, right? So, example. We all have different cultures. I went and spent some time in Taiwan, right? Lived there for 4 months. And I read about the culture a little bit. And I heard that it was cool, that it was culturally acceptable to burp at a meal. So I thought, man, I want to try this joint out. Now, I don't know if you knew it, but I have the gift of burping, right? So I'm sitting there with me, my wife, and my 2 translators who were about my age. And I'm sitting there and I'm eating with my chopstick, I'm grubbing, and I'm like, bleh. My wife looked at me. The other 2 people didn't even notice. They just went grubbing, nothing like. I was like, man, this is true, man. You can burp at the meal. This is the greatest culture ever. So I'm sitting there, I let one rip a little bit more. Rip. They didn't look at me. My wife gives me a little under the table, right? What is wrong with you, right? Culturally, it wasn't accepted from my wife's culture. I didn't tell her I was going to do this. Then all of a sudden, I let one rip, baby. And it's like, rip. They dropped their chopstick and said, what is wrong with you? And I realized something, that it was cool to burp in Taiwan, but there's certain limits to that burp, that it wasn't culture accepted. So you had to learn the different cultures, right? So like here, love being with you guys today. Media class rules. See ya. What does that mean?
Peace.
If we were in New Zealand, you know what this means? Up yours.
I was close.
Right? Up yours, right? So here, nobody's offended. But if I go to New Zealand and do this, y'all are like, dude, what's up? We do whack. How many here wore a necktie? in your life at one point or another. Or what does necktie mean? What does it represent?
It's a formal.
Formal joint, right? You're going to look nice. Did you know that the original use of a necktie was to ward off evil spirits? Now they attract evil spirits. No, just kidding. Culture changes. And before long, as culture, you have certain things you eat, certain things you think, certain ways that you mourn, certain ways that you do life that become just normal. And what happens is, and there's good things in your culture and there's bad things in your culture. So the reason why there's so much violence in our community sometimes has to do with the culture that we're a part of and the things that we do. So what does this have to do with why I'm here today? Calhoun. All right, Calhoun was America's 7th vice president. I keep saying principal, but that's not it. Calhoun owned dozens of slaves during his lifetime. He routinely ordered them beaten and whipped. Calhoun was once referred to slavery as a positive good on the floor of the U.S. Senate. Additionally, Calhoun supported and co-authored the Indian Removal Act, right? This used to be native territory. It used to be Miami land. And they no longer live here in Mass. They were moved out, part of the Indian Removal Act. This legislation forced American Indians from their homes at gunpoint, resulting in thousands of deaths on the Trails of Tears. A busy Fort Wayne street is named in his honor. Let me go through a couple more things. These are some articles I started digging up. He died in 1850, right? Anybody else alive in 1850?
Me.
Yeah. So couple people. That's good. Couple people were around. But other than that, so you knew John Calhoun, right?
Yeah, he was a dick.
We went there, right? So anyway, so I won't read all this, but these are some of the things that begin to talk about Calhoun and who he was. Because see, there's a lot of slavery back in those days, right? And a lot of people were a product of their time. But he wasn't just a product of his time. He was radical for his time. He was radical racist. And so he introduced pro-slavery resolutions. He literally said that slavery was God ordained. So part of the church, like God made certain people different races for a reason, and white man is supposed to be on top, is what he believed. And he said slavery was necessary for the American government. Slavery was a blessing. Mr. Doolittle said that it was in the measure of peace, not war. He said that it was the duty of the government to acknowledge and face the changes of the day. What are the new ideas we have to meet? The first is the idea that slavery is a blessing and a proper state for the society in our republic, which means America. This idea was not admitted by the men who formed the Constitution, but was the idea of Calhoun. All said it was an evil, and socially and politically. Mr. Klingling asked when Mr. Calhoun said slavery was a blessing. Mr. Doolittle said, he said it on the floor of the Senate. He said it was the best and most stable basis of the free institution. This idea now resides desperate in the southern states and is threatened to destroy everything unless it is admitted and recognized. So you understand where Calhoun's coming from, right? He's a radical dude. He said that slavery was good and a blessing, and we needed it because all free societies need slavery. That's what he said. And then again, this kind of reiterates it. They declared that slavery, black or white, is right and necessary. And then this doctrine has been advocated by the southern pulpit, but he also wants to expand it into the north. He believed that that slavery is the most safe and stable basis for the free institution of the world. These are the thoughts of Calhoun, right? Now, anybody know when the street Calhoun was laid?
18, I say 19. No, it's 1880 something or
23.
1823.
What year is it now?
23.
About 100
2023.
How long ago was it? 200 years ago. Now, I go door to door because we got to get 60% of these, 60% of the landowners. If we get 60% of the landowners, the mayor said he would change the name from Calhoun to Martin Luther King Boulevard. Tell me something about Martin Luther King Boulevard that's different from Calhoun. How is he different? What is it belief-wise? Anybody know Martin Luther King? You heard of him? No, maybe that was Jesus. But
He thought of a better way to.
I've seen that video.
Martin Luther King, was he just for black folk?
Everybody.
Everybody. He was for everybody. Everybody was part of what he called the beloved community, right? And that was for everybody. White, black, Hispanic, Asian. Everybody was part of his community. And that's what he fought for. And that's what we want the city to name Martin Luther King Boulevard. Because it's not going to fix racism or violence, but what it's going to do is it's going to be a symbol of a change that we're already making. That we're already making that says, you know what? Everybody in this city counts. Everybody in this city matters. And so that's what we're doing, door to door. And what I want you guys to help out with, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But here's a couple of things that Calhoun said himself. Our government is for the white man. Yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your guys' plan? Because you said that you guys are going door to door. What's your guys' plan for people who like don't live there anymore and it's abandoned, or like shop owners that are out of town?
Hang on to that. We'll come back to that. Is that cool? Yeah. Cool. All right. Couple of things. Those. Okay. So here basically it says here, I hold in the present state of civilization where two races are different. Now follow this. They're distinguished by color. In his particular set, he was talking white and black dichotomy, right? He says, as well as there's other physical differences, as well as intellectual, are brought together in relation now exists in the slave-holding states between the two. Instead of an evil, it's a good and positive good. So slavery was a positive good. And basically what he said was, there's a distinction. We're supposed to be for the white guy only. Because the black man is lower than and less than. And that's not who we want him to be. That's not what Dr. King taught. And that's not what we believe is Southside. That's not what we believe as Fort Waynians, is it?
No, sir.
You know what I'm saying? And so here he says there's a distinction. Not only is there a physical color difference, there's a mental difference. And somehow they're less than us. Therefore, they deserve to be in slavery. Now, you go on. In 1818, he wrote a report to Congress saying it was time for the battery to run low.
You should make it.
Right? I'll go fast. Okay, one reason he said, this is about the policy towards the Indians. One reason he said it was not because of the recent decisive Indian military defeats, but also because of a fixed law of nature. In the intercourse between civilized and savage people, Indians had become dependent on advanced tools produced by whites and were helpless. Okay, so basically what he's saying, the native peoples were called savages, right? You ever heard that phrase? Savages. Now, here's the thing. It's a lot harder to kill somebody if you know them. Like Try Allen, I know you. Because I know who you are, I don't want to kill you.
I would kill you in a heartbeat.
Okay. Right. But now let's say I see him and I don't know his name. He's a savage or a cockroach or I'll put some kind of label on him. I degrade him. Now all of a sudden he's not a human being. He's dehumanized. He's a lot easier to kill and put into slavery and to do bad things towards.
I mean, hey, if you want to put me in slavery, I don't know.
Nah, Mo, no. I like you, man. You see? I mean, that's the thing is we do the same thing, don't we? We call people names all the time. We dehumanize people. And that's the first step in having the Calhoun mentality. And it leads to more racism and to more violence and more hate in our society. You follow me? You follow what I'm saying? So, and then the last thing for all the Mexican folks in the room, there are these among us who talk about erecting these Mexicans into territorial governments and placing them on equality with the people of the states. I utterly protest this project. So basically, we're on the frontier right here. Fort Wayne used to be the wilderness, right? And the United States was going out west, actually the Mexican territory. And there was debate whether the Mexican folks should be part of our community. And Calhoun was a staunch saying, no, there's no place for the Mexicans to be a part of our government.
For a minute there, they would kill a lot of Mexicans if they was like Americans.
Yes. Okay, everybody still with me?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to keep going. All right, so this is the project. This is what we're going. We have time to watch this video?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me watch this video. We just made the news.
Yep. This is last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday, this came across. Now there's probably gonna be a commercial and all that.
They feel alone.
Yeah, it's still moving.
This is a Southside high-speed internet.
Yeah. Wow.
We'll give him another sec. Ah, I see it. Coming.
Once that gets loaded, I'm going to plug it in for you so it doesn't die on you.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, here we go. Probably want to be able to hear it.
Group is continuing its efforts to have a Fort Wayne densified.
Commercial. Did you guys brush your teeth today? Brush your teeth? You're like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Extend the life of teeth. Crest, the #1 toothpaste brand in America.
Sponsored by Chris.
Dr. King.
And it's not just a small side street, it's the widely traveled Calhoun Street. Why? Well, Wayne 15's Rex Smith is here to tell us about their efforts. Rex.
Dirk and Alyssa, the MLK Club in Fort Wayne started this movement and even presented the idea to Mayor Tom Henry back in 2021. The reason they're pushing for the switch to Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard starts with who John Calhoun was. A flyer the group hands out references him as a slave owner who talked about slavery as a positive and adds that statues of Calhoun in his hometown in South Carolina have been removed for those reasons. In order to get the name changed, the MLK Club has to get 60% of the landowners on Calhoun Street to sign their petition to change it before they can submit a request to the city. It would have to be approved by the City Plan Commission and then be approved by the mayor. The man in charge of getting that done is Lahr, who tells me so far they've been able to connect with just under half of Calhoun Street residents and business owners. Of that half, 65% have signed their petition, but Lahr says most people they talk to have no idea who John Calhoun was. In their no pile, the reasoning stems from people not wanting to deal with changing their address, to people who don't want to sharpen a divide of the city they say Calhoun Street creates, and those who don't want to see history erased. Lahr says that is not what they're about.
What we want to do is tell the story. We don't want to erase history. We want Calhoun signs to go in the museum downtown with pictures of the residents, with saying, hey, we changed the name for a reason. Because we're changing the narrative, not changing history, but changing the narrative of the future. That now we're a place for Fort Waynians, for everybody. Rich, poor, white, black, everyone's invited to the table here in Fort Wayne. And the name of Martin Luther King is representative of that reality.
Lahr says he believes they can get to that mark of 60%, but they are having a hard time tracking down owners of abandoned properties, landlords who are out of state, and business owners that haven't called them back. But Lahr says they are going to keep going. In this story on Wayne.com, we include a comment from the mayor's office we received today on this topic, and more from the MLK Club on the history of John Calhoun, of Dr. King, and why they are pushing to change the name of the street. Rex Smith, Wayne 15 News.
Any thoughts?
Densify from Crest Pro Health. Like your bones, keep these days in your retirement. Densify helps you fill microscopic weak spots and actively rebuild.
So thoughts?
They still didn't answer my question.
Thoughts? Okay, go ahead.
What's the plan for it?
So the plan is, originally, we need 60% of the landowners on Calhoun to sign, right? So we've gotten about half of those people. We're going door to door. We've gotten about 65%.
But you only need 60%.
We only need 60%, but we got the other half we haven't been able to reach because they're business owners. We need to contact business owners. We need to, which we're in the process of doing. Some of the first area, the residents, they have cats that the landlords living in California, Florida. There's people that don't even live here or are invested in the community. And so what I later found out from this since last week, that's not actually a law that we have to have 60%. That's something that the mayor has put on us, which is cool because it's given us the process. I don't want to just change the name. I want what's happening right here, right now, with us being informed so that we can make a difference. right? So we can not say, oh, we're erasing history. No, we're going to be history tellers and telling, hey, this is the injustice that we're seeing. I learned about this in school today. Now I'm doing something about it. And we're doing something to reflect the community. And so that's what we need to do. And so with that, we're still going to keep working on the 60%, right? And then we're also going to try to get a broader community. We have an online, which I'll show you in a minute, petition. We have petition for the people. We also have petition that's for not just people in Calhoun, but for all people and stuff like that. And so what I'm planning on doing with you guys is you guys help create some kind of documentary. You guys tell the story of Calhoun Street so we can show it to the mayor, we can show it in the community, we can show it all over the place. And it'll be a movement that's a student movement that of people who are interested in making a difference in the community. All right?
Put me on it. I got you.
I would love it. All right, okay, now this next bit, I'm gonna ask permission. Okay, Calhoun died in 1850. But his legacy of racism still lives on today. In response to the news coverage, there were several negative responses, and I tried to respond to everybody, and I got a lot of negative pushback. Very few positive things for me on that news article. We followed the online trail, and this is what was discovered, that Calhoun lives. You know, a lot of people say, well, why are you bringing up the past? Well, the past is always there. It affects who we are now. The reason why some of us are so angry is because of things that happened to us in the past. The reason why there's brokenness and different things over here is because of things that happened in the past, and we ignore the past rather than deal and name the past and allow the healing to begin happening. We will never get to a place of healing and unity and reconciliation, right? And so are you guys cool with this? I'm going to show you some of the things I found just in this last week of how Calhoun lives, right? There was a guy that's put a remark that was laughing at everything I had to put, and some of the stuff I put was brilliant. No, just kidding. But, you know, and he was laughing, so I kind of followed him, and he had a chat, that Descendant Thoughts. And his first article was from MLK Day, and it says, now that's how you celebrate the legacy of MLK. And what it is Florida shooting at the Martin Luther King Jr. Day event leaves 8 people wounded.
That's fucked up.
Yes. That is messed up. Could there be anything more deliciously predictable than 8 people, presumably all black, from this video I saw being shot at an MLK Day event? This isn't 1850, y'all. This is last week. Let me go on. There's no place less safe in any urban center than a street named Martin Luther King Boulevard. And there's nothing more predictable than chimps chimping out. The legendary impulse control on display again. Also the legendary Porsche shooting on display again. It looks like not even one killed in all that gunfire. I'd like to hire a certified shooter to teach them marksmanship. There might be fewer to contend with later on. You guys follow me? Calhoun lives. Not all white people are like this. Not all people are this extreme. Just like in days of Calhoun, they weren't that extreme, all of them. But there are people extremities. And the white supremacy that was laid in 1823, because when that street was laid, right now, some people live on Calhoun, you don't even know who he is, right? But the thing was, at 1823, everybody knew who he was and what he was about. And nobody had an uproar. And what happens is, just like that fish that's swimming in the water, doesn't know that water exists anymore, Calhoun is faded into our water of white supremacy in Fort Wayne. And now it's more of a diverse community. Now Calhoun, what's interesting about Calhoun is on one side, you have the 02, right? On the other side, you have the 03. One side, you have the 07. You follow me? The other side, what? 07, I want to see on the other side. 06. 03, 04. It's a dividing line. It's the poorest neighborhoods, the most violent neighborhoods, the most people of color living in those neighborhoods. And yet we just accept it as reality. That this Calhoun can be a place of separation between the rich and the poor, the white and the black. Hispanics and Asians being isolated from other people. Like, this is what we're about, is changing the name of the street, not because it's a cute little club or this is a great guy, but we want to represent something deeper. We want to work together to bring in unity in this beloved community that Martin Luther King talked about. You guys feel me? You guys feel me? All right. And there's more junk that they said. So this is what the petition looks like. It's not quite this big. We get it more like this size, you know what I mean? Because that'd be ridiculous. But this is the QR code. If you have your phones and you want to hit up right now and sign up the petition, you can more or less do that. But what I'm hoping to do is that we can create an Archer video in a couple months that shows some of this research. I want you guys to look up stuff yourselves. You know, because it's not just, I'm just some dude, right, coming in and telling you stuff. You got to look for it yourself. And that's what the best kind of education is. It's not just coming up here, listening, being brain dead, and letting the teacher fill your brains up with stuff. But it's you taking some knowledge and finding out stuff for yourselves, right? And what can we dig up about Calhoun? What can we dig up about the history of Fort Wayne? And what are the things that we want to show that's different, right? What is the way that we want to show that Martin Luther King represents who we are as a community? Southside. Southside is a beautiful representation of what we are as a community in Fort Wayne. I think it's 30% black, 30% white, 20% Hispanic, 10% Asian, somewhere around there. I mean, it's a beautiful display of who we are as a city. And what better place than to have Southside students create some kind of project, lead the march on being able to get signatures to change the name of Calhoun to Martin Luther King Boulevard, which, what street is Southside on?
Clinton. No, Calhoun.
Calhoun. Calhoun. Is some things, right? What zip code?
46807.
You know what's interesting though? Calhoun is a dividing line. Everything on the west side is 07. Everything on the right side is 06, except for Southside. It does a little jog around 2-block area all the way to Rudisill, comes around, and it's included in the 07. But when zip codes were created in about the 1940s, this was a predominantly white school. So there's things that are implanted in our culture that no longer reflect who we are. And so we got to start thinking critically. We got to start thinking differently. When we got to start making a difference. And so that's it. I don't know how we want to take this. We got some other questions or anything like that. But I have faith. I'm not wasting my time coming to Southside. Peacemaker movement and all that stuff. We're not peacekeepers. We're peacemakers. And sometimes it takes courage because you know what? Out there, you're going to get some of these whack jobs, wackadoos kind of saying some bad things about you. But you got to have courage to make a stand, to have the city represent what Southside is all about. All right, what else we got? That's all. Next week, next Thursday. I know. We're going next Thursday because I had to wait for a meeting to happen beforehand. It got pushed back. So beginning of February, we'll be on it.
When are we starting at the art period?
Oh, next Monday. Or next Wednesday. Yep. Any other thoughts? Do you have any thoughts or anything that...
No, sir, that was phenomenal. And I think this is a good launching point. This is a good starting point so they understand the foundation. And then we're just going to build on that foundation. And that's why I wanted him to come to this class, guys, because I've known you guys for years. I feel like you have the most maturity, you have the most experience, and I think you have the most creative ideas of all my classes.
Yes.
And you're going to take this basic knowledge, like you said, and you're not just going to take it and listen. And you will, but you're going to add to it. And that's always my dream too, is that what you guys can do. My other classes can't do it. They can't handle it. But I think you guys, of all the classes, I wanted him to talk to you, because you take it and you run with it. Whatever I give to you, you make something cool. So this is only the beginning.
And I think too, like, a lot of people think, well, what good, changing the name of a street isn't going to do anything. No, it's not going to absolutely not do an absolute thing if we go and we say, all right, change the name of the street. People are still the same. But if we go through the process and do history lessons and begin to learn history, begin to learn the story, and begin dreaming about what we can produce. Now, it's been around how long, the street? 200 years. Imagine 200 years from now. Half the time it's been Martin Luther King. And they're going to go into the little museums. Y'all dead a long time by now. You're laughing at me. We're dead. Except for her. She's still alive. But everybody else is dead.
Dead as hell. Except
our kids. Because you're going to have kids. And their kids. And their kids. And eventually we'll have descendants. and they can look back and that began here in a classroom. So school wasn't a complete waste. It was actually something that you birthed something. And it's not just changing the name of the street we're wanting. We're wanting to show that all lives are important, that everybody is part of this community.
And they're going to be playing this video